First, I was unironically analysing them. Then I was taking the piss out of them through memes because they were making a meme out of themselves. And now I'm talking about them. You know, it's come to this. Today, we are looking at the Carlton Essendon game. It's gotten to that point where I'm just like, I want to vent a little bit. And obviously, this isn't all about me. Obviously, me talking is me talking. But if you want to share your thoughts, put them in the comments. I also have a little discussion thread on the community section of my channel saying, what is the biggest issue? That is the question of the day. Is it the players or is it the coach? That's for you to answer, and I'm interested to hear your results or your verdict. Carlton playing footy right now is basically the result of if you did a test, you know, got every single answer wrong, and then proceeded to put the exact same wrong answers in your retry. It feels exactly like that because every single week we're seeing the same results. I don't want to feed into the nuffy talk of Michael Voss said this in the press conference. Michael Voss has the following body language and that means this. I don't want to feed into that. But in saying that, there is no recognizable difference week in, week out that, you know, really gives me any reason to ignore what he's doing in the press conference, how he's carrying himself, because he gives off a very empty tone, if that makes any sense. He doesn't seem to be too worried. I mean, I'm now participating in this nuffy talk that I said I wasn't going to participate in, but I mean, having gone 6 weeks without a win, you expect a little bit more emotion, and there just is simply nothing there. I'm the kind that will laugh as a coping mechanism if something goes horribly wrong. And I did that in the round 23 game last year. I did it in round 22 as well. And then last night I was doing it again all throughout the night, because all throughout the night we were making an absolute fool out of ourselves. I was asking myself after the game, where did the night go? And was I actually at the MCG watching the game, or was it just a fever dream? What even was that? 83,000 people rocked up because of incentives. We had bobbleheads to go around. We had $2 pies. I mean, what more could you possibly want? And then we decided to reminisce on the past, which is exactly what we shouldn't be doing, especially given half the people in the crowd, I saw a tweet, half the people in the crowd haven't seen a flag, including myself. And I don't want to participate in what happened in the past when I don't even know what that looked like. I want to focus on the now, and to think that right now we are currently in the bottom 4, it's just absolutely astonishing. I'll use that word again. The game was very reminiscent of the years of mediocrity. You know, you concede a shit ton of goals in 15 minutes in a very, very easy way. You know, Essendon were very crisp out of the centre with their clearance. Inside the 50, they were clinical. They knew what they were doing. They had direction. Complete contrast to anything that we were trying to do. We've talked about leadership in the last couple of weeks. Max Gawn last week stood up when it counted, when the game was there to be won. And obviously at halftime, it was within a goal with regards to the margin. And straight out the break, Zach Merritt kicks a goal, leading from the front. And it was a snap as well. And it was more clinical than I've seen any of our key forwards kick a footy this year. Probably not this year, but on the night, definitely. Charlie Curnow kicks 4 behinds to start off his scoring output, which is exactly what you don't want. And then we talk about captains. Patrick Cripps had 4 kicks on the night. It was probably better he didn't kick the football, because when he did, it was pretty catastrophic. It was these really they just sat up in the air. They weren't advantageous to any one of our players. Sometimes they went off the side. Sometimes he didn't look like he could really put one foot in front of the other and actually kick the ball. But that's just simply unacceptable. There's been a lot of light shed on the lack of leadership on the field, and that was fully apparent last night, especially when we needed a response out of the break after a pretty abysmal first half, and we're pretty lucky to only be 2 points down. We probably could have also been in front. You could have made that case, but still, just absolutely diabolical out the break. Look, obviously, it's a game of opinions. You could have a lot of different reasons as to why you think this team is just doing what they're doing. But for me, I think it's just the system fraught with dysfunction and failures. You could see some of the time we were actually looking to switch the play a lot more than usual. And when that happened, you could see what happened when the fat side opened up and players could run into that patch of space. You know, we seem to play a little bit more of a fluent, free-flowing brand of football. But that just simply didn't happen enough, and we don't rely on that enough. Look, I said this in an analysis a couple of weeks ago that I did. I did a fully centric analysis on the team element and whether that exists in our team. And our fate is sealed before we even play because it simply doesn't. You know, at least last night, forwards don't lead up at the footy. They just want it in space. They don't really present themselves as a marking target. So players kicking inside 50 don't actually know where they're kicking because these players don't show authority, you know, and aren't really assertive. Hospital hand passes, you know, these dinky little kicks that barely get off the ground. They don't advantage anyone. You got players knocking each other over. You've got players not communicating. There was one with JSOS and Matt Owies. They didn't even know who wanted to go for the football. They were just happy for the other one to do it. And that's basically the mantra of at least the last 6 weeks of football, waiting for someone else to do it, you know? And it's no surprise when there is no team element, nothing is going to be clean or cohesive because no one's going to mark the ball inside the 50. The team isn't working collectively to actually lock the ball in. And when we do, we still find another way to stuff things up. Like we could be 20 meters out directly in front after being gifted a free kick by an umpire, and we would still find a way to screw things up. It's that simple. And some people were talking about the umpiring last night. Yes, it wasn't great, but when you're conceding 6 in 15 minutes, that isn't really dependent on umpiring decisions. That's just dependent on the way you play and the way the opposition plays. And we are so far off the opposition that the umpires simply have no bearing over the result of those 15 minutes. Selection integrity does not work because it's in the system. It runs deeply. Just like something runs deeper, if you sack the coach, it's not going to do anything. It's unrelated issues that we're trying to fix that simply aren't at the core of all these problems. It also comes from an on-field intelligence. There were a couple times where Jesse Motlop could have carried the ball further and actually registered a score. Instead, we came up empty on both possessions, or came up with a less successful result than what could have been. A very achievable result that could have been as well, mind you. So now another interesting thing to note, players don't look ahead. Like they don't assess what could happen if I pass the ball to this player. Are they in a good position to progress the play forward? So many times we handball it to someone, they don't have an alternative option. Sometimes we'll kick it out wide to someone who simply does not have an outlet. There's no support, there's no runners there. There's just no concern or consideration for whether or not we're setting a teammate up for good or for bad. Usually it is the teammate being set up for the latter. So that's just another thing I've observed. Another thing I'm not going to look into too much because it's blatantly obvious. The tackling is very bad. You know, constantly we're bringing players down, but the arms are still free, so it doesn't really affect them whatsoever. It's happened for weeks. There were 33 tackles on the night, which is a negative 31 difference, which is just unfathomable, especially for a game you need to win. You've lost 5 in a row. That kind of effort is just not going to cut it. The Bombers had 19 tackles inside their forward 50 and we had 33 overall. I'm just going to let that sit. And it's bad. It's so bad. Now, if we go back to the burning question, what is the bigger issue, the coach or the players? Well, I'm just going to rest my case with 2 questions and answers. Is the coach doing enough to get the best out of the players? No. We saw in a system last year, he's overcorrected it, or the coaching staff have overcorrected. This team is capable, and with the coach there as well. Currently, they're not buying into a system, or don't look like they're buying into a system, because they don't suit it. We're trying to be something we simply aren't. And then on the players' end, are they doing enough in the things that they can control? The answer is no. So, look, it's both parties, let's be honest here. But, like, to say this started at the bye is, I think that's incorrect. I think it did start this year, because last year we were actually registering scores. We were kicking at least 11 goals a game. You know, in those losses, like the last 2 games of the year, we were kicking 11 goals. In the Brisbane game, as bad as that was, we kicked close to 11 goals. Like, our efficiency was much, much better. The game style was a lot different. This year, I've just got some stats. In those last 6 weeks, we have exceeded, 47 inside 50s, 5 of the 6 times in this losing streak, and we have only kicked 11 goals once. And the other 5 games we've kicked less than 60, having had more than 47 entries in 5 of those 6 games. That is ridiculous. And usually the inside 50 count is dead even, or we have the advantage. The only outlier was the Melbourne game last week. But every single one of those games, we've had like the same amount of scoring shots. We've had the same amount of inside 50s or more, and have just not done anything going inside 50. Look, it's crazy that we're now talking about a team that potentially is the rebuild, even though we're all in, or it looks like we're all in with the acquisitions we've made, the picks that we've lost to get these players that we think can complete us. Look, I think as it stands, we're the second worst team in the comp, and we would be a better West Coast if you took our back line out. Because like in the first half, we only conceded 4 goals. The Melbourne game last week, we conceded 8 goals. We haven't conceded 100 points an awful lot this season, or 90 points even. If you took our back line out, we would be losing continuously by ridiculous margins. And at least if that happened, I would know we're going to lose. It was the fact that it was Essendon. We thought there may be a little glimmer of hope. And the opportunity presented itself there again, and we just did not take it one bit whatsoever. And that's when you know this team is completely unserious about what they say they want to achieve. It's just not going to happen. Look, I love to compare Carlton to a scenario where I get angry at video games, and usually you start with a pragmatic approach. When you first sit down to play a game, you've got a pragmatic approach. You know what you want to do. You're strategic. You're level-headed. When things start to not go your way, you lose all form of rationale. You know, you start to get into panic mode. That pragmatic approach goes out the window and you start forcing things. I like to think of Carlton as a team who are doing that right now. Without the visible anger shown, it feels like we're forcing things a lot and getting into panic stations because things aren't going our way. And we've, as I said, overcorrected and resorted to something that we're not. And now that we're trying to go back to what we started with, it's pretty laughable at this point. And it's as simple as that. The confidence is shot. The on-field product is crap. The fans, their feelings, their emotions, they feel like crap. And the positioning we find ourselves in is, you guessed it, crap. And that's putting it lightly. So as I said at the very start of the video, make sure to put your thoughts in the comments. Let's have an open discussion about this, because Carlton discussion go hand in hand. So make sure to do that and go to the community poll and put your vote in as to who is the bigger issue, the players or the coach. Thank you. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.